This is a family show.
I didn't realize I wasn't in uniform. Hang on. All right,
Dang.
now we're ready.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Movies That Make You podcast. Season 2 is in full gear, and so we are super excited for what we got going on this season. Just to let you know what that means, we still have our weekly Prepisodes where we discuss movies to watch in preparation for a new release hitting theaters. I got my buddy POPpaGoss on those each and every week. Those drop on Mondays at 6 a.m. Also, we have our Creators Conversations. This is where we're interviewing people from the business and beyond to discuss what they do to create and how they create their art. So be on the lookout for that. We're also doing our monthly watch-alongs where we pick a movie to watch. We live stream our conversation on YouTube. This week, we're welcoming Chris Valentin back on the show to talk about all the Spdier-Man movies up until this point. We've got Brand New Day dropping in theaters Friday, so we want to be prepared because they could throw anything at us. We hope you also check out our website at moviesthatmakeyoupodcast.com. There you can see all of our social links. You can listen to the podcast. You can watch the podcast. We also have our merch store. You can find tons of merch for Movies That Make You and our friends. We also have a link to our letterbox where you can see all the movies that we watch in preparation for the new releases, but also the movies that make you laugh, the movies that make you cry, the movies that make you scream, and everything in between. So before we get to this week's episode, let's check out what we got coming up on the Movies That Make You podcast. On July 31st, we've got our special double feature live watch, and it's going to be a first watch for me, and that is Escape from New York, and a first watch for everyone almost, Escape from LA. We hope you'll join us for this John Carpenter special. Next week, we've got the Spooky Okie back to prepare for Ice Cream Man, dropping in theaters, the new Eli Roth film. So we're going to be talking about the original Ice Cream Man. We're going to be talking about Thanksgiving, Hostel, and Cabin Fever from Eli Roth. The week after that, we've got its very special episode featuring Jeff Barker, father to Curry Barker. We had him on a Creators Conversation. He's joining the podcast for a Prepisode for It. It is being re-released in a 40th anniversary cover. So in order to celebrate that, we are going to be discussing his top 5 favorite Stephen King film adaptations. So we're looking forward to that conversation. We hope you are too. The week after that, we're going to be talking about all the Insidious films in preparation for Insidious Out of the Further with a brand new guest, Keith Cantrell. We met him at OKC HorrorCon. He had some incredible insights in our Q&A sessions. So we're excited to have him on the podcast for the first time. And he also did the music that we used for our promo for Evil Dead Burn. The week after that, we've got Animation Invasion. We're going to be prepping for Coyote vs. Acme. And we're going to be joined by our special guest, Jason Vines of ATX-FX, visual effects lead for Iron Lung. We're going to be talking about a host of films that have live action plus cartoon animation ingrained together. So we're excited to have those conversations. Hope those episodes excite you. So without further ado, let's get to the podcast. We are back with another episode of the Movies That Make You podcast. I'm Sprang. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. POPpaGoss. What's up, my friend?
Hello, everybody.
And we are excited today to invite back our good friend, Chris Valentin. What's going on, brother?
How you guys doing? I'm doing great, man.
Good, doing good, man. We had you on for the Star Wars episodes, Star Wars month a few months ago, and just a blast on that. We had so many great views on our Instagram and our YouTube for those episodes. So very excited to have you back. You expressed your love for Spdier-Man on those episodes, and so we're excited to have your knowledge here today. But before we jump into Spdier-Man movies, I know we talked a little bit about Star Wars and your love for Star Wars movies. Can you just share a little bit as our guest, like what is it about the Spdier-Man movies overall, not kind of digging deep, but just overall, what is it that drew you into the character and to the movies?
Well, it always originally started when I was, like I would say that I don't even want to say every guy, every person when they're younger always has like that superhero that they dress up for Halloween, like when they're like 6 or like 5 years old. For me, it was always Spider-Man. So obviously as I got older, I started watching the movies, and it was really just the biggest, because Spider-Man's whole thing is responsibility and hope. So if like I were to transition to DC, my favorite character is Superman. But I mean, obviously I love Spider-Man. So I love how it's always doing the right thing no matter what, like always having the responsibility, the choice to make the good decision no matter what. And that's like by his definition. is like what Spider-Man is. It's not standing by. It's always doing the right thing no matter what it is.
That's amazing. And when you bring that up, and I like for me, the pajamas were always, I had a Superman pajamas and the Batman pajamas with the capes, and I would alternate them each night. You know, those. So for me, I always lean towards Superman because I think the Christopher Reeve Superman was the movie that came out that I was able to see as a kid, and so it really resonated with me and really grabbed my imagination. And then when Batman came out, I wasn't old enough to see it because I was 9, and so Batman didn't really kind of get my excitement until I was old enough to start kind of watching those movies. I enjoyed them, but even if somebody asked me like, "What's your favorite comic book character?" like 10 years ago, I still would have said Superman, just because it's got that nostalgia for me. And I think, like you said, he's a symbol of hope, and a lot of superheroes have to kind of waver in their morals sometimes, or like 'cause Batman specifically kind of wavers on that to try and do what he wants to do, the right thing, but he's doing things that are a little bit more dark, a little bit more kind of in that uh, more darker phase, if I can say that. So, but I like how you said that, and I think one of the criticisms that people have had of Superman is that how do you make Superman, because he's just a Boy Scout? That's not going to relate to modern audiences. And so they've struggled with that. And I think that's why Man of Steel came out, and it was like, hey, here's a modern day Superman, but that actually just ends up at the end, like kind of dropping his, what we consider a very key piece to his morality, which is not kill. And he
Hmm.
kills Zod. But Spider-Man worked. So what do you think is about Spider-Man that people aren't grasping that we also have in Superman? This, because I like the way you phrased that.
I don't know. I think a lot of people nowadays, like, they want to just see, like, no one likes having like a weak superhero, I guess I could say. Like, one of the biggest complaints, like even with Spider-Man, or like going back to what you said, Superman films, is like they're weak. Like, why are they losing to these villains? But it's like, the thing is like they don't want to hurt anyone. Like, they just want to do good. They don't want to hurt anyone. So my biggest thing with Spider-Man is, and this is literally probably in almost every movie and every comic too, is he's always pulling his punches. Like, he doesn't want to harm anyone. He just wants to be the good. He wants to be the symbol of hope. He wants, when he swings by, he wants people to look up and just smile.
I like
So I
that.
think I think that's one of the biggest things. A lot of people, like you said with Man of Steel, most people liked it because, it was just, oh, he wasn't losing. It was just action packed and he killed Zod. But it's like, that's not who his character is. Like, if Spider-Man killed someone, it's like, that's not Spider-Man.
Hmm. And even when he did, as we get into the movies, there's that moment in the first Raimi one where he act like, kind of by stepping out of the way, he ends up having his uncle killed, and then that ends up being a key piece to his morality from that point on. He's like, I always have to do the right thing no matter what I'm feeling. He let the guy run past him because he was upset at the person for not paying him for whatever. And so he's like, "Oh, I'll show this guy and let this guy rob him." And then that ends up coming back to bite him um, pretty bigly. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's this morality to Spider-Man that I think is great. So yeah, that's amazing. I really relate to that. So we are going to talk about all 8 live action Spider-Man movies in preparation for a brand new day that's dropping this Friday. We are super stoked about this movie. We really hope that it's going to be good. Tom Holland's had a heavy hand in the production and the storytelling on this one, I believe, and he really wants to do this thing right. And so we're excited to see it. And so, in order to prep for that, we're going to talk about all the ones that came before, like we do. So we are going to talk about these in the iteration of the Spider-Man. So the Sam Raimi verse, the Andrew Garfield movies, and then the Tom Holland proper Marvel movies. And we'll talk about those in 3. Since there's so many movies, we don't want it to drag on too much, but we want to make sure we touch on everything we can thematically, character-wise, and yeah, so on. So let's start with talking about the Sam Raimi trilogy. This is our first iteration of seeing Spider-Man on the big screen. It was revolutionary when it came out. I remember the first trailer had the Twin Towers in it, and then they had to take that out, obviously, because it came out post 9/11. So that's pretty impactful. But it was really just an incredible story. The first story We see that he's got a relationship with Harry Osborn, whose father is the head of Oscorp, who's trying to experiment all this stuff. He ends up creating himself as the Green Goblin and begins terrorizing people. Tobey Maguire plays Spider-Man. He gets bit by a spider while he's on a tour at Oscorp, and then he ends up developing all these powers, and he realizes he wants to use them for good. His uncle Ben, as we mentioned before, gets killed by a person that's robbing the place, it seems. And he takes that as kind of his morality. I have to go on and do great things with this power. As the phrase says that we hear over and over, with great power comes great responsibility. And so in the first movie, kind of just jumping ahead, the first movie, the villain is Green Goblin. At the very end of the movie, he is standing over the Green Goblin's body, and his son, who's Peter's best friend Harry, walks in, sees Spider-Man killed his dad, and he's super ticked. Second movie, we introduce Doc Ock, who's another person that's a mentor to Peter, but then he develops this technology to use these long tentacles mechanically. He can use his brain to control them, but then what ends up happening is those tentacles begin to control him, and he turns bad. And so Peter, through that movie, has to take him out, or at least capture him and save the day, along with his MJ, who's his love interest through all of these movies as well. And in the second movie, he actually does tell MJ who he is, because he was trying to protect her by not telling her in the first movie. Third movie, we end up getting 2 to 3 villains in this one. Well, two main villains in this one. We got Sandman, who is a convicted convict. He develops this ability to turn into sand, and he can move things around. And he fights Spider-Man. But then we also get Eddie Brock as gets a symbiote suit, or gets the symbiote on him, and he becomes Venom. And we also get Harry Osborn back as Hobgoblin. So he has 3 villains in that one. One of the main characters, or one of the main key story points in that one, is that when Peter has a symbiote on him, it basically pulls out all of the bad parts of his personality, and he's just exhibiting being a jerk to everybody, and not being Peter Parker. And then he gets rid of the symbiote, and it goes to Eddie Brock, who is weaker and ends up becoming Venom. And then Peter Parker Spider-Man has to save the day, and we end with him winning so
I'm gonna rub some dirt in your eye.
do it.
Gosh, Parker, you are such a Boy Scout.
Such a great. I was rewatching Spider-Man 3 the other night, and I forgot how some of the one-liners are so funny.
Yeah. Well, cool. So that's a little bit about the Sam Raimi trilogy, all directed by Sam Raimi. I think we all kind of have heard, Josh, you might give it in the Baccarat breakdown. I won't spoil it for everybody, about kind of what went on with that third movie. But Chris, share your thoughts. Summarize your thoughts on that trilogy and what that Tobey Maguire Spider-Man means to you.
Now that I've gotten older and I read more comics and got more diverse in the hero itself, I liked the Sam Raimi trilogy. I did have my few picks with it. The first movie, I loved Green Goblin. I think my favorite villain is Doc Ock, but Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin was probably one of the greatest portrayed things, next to Heath Ledger's Joker. The way that I love the personality switch, it's something just snaps and he's just a completely different person, and you don't even fully know it either, because he's masking just being Norman Osborn so well. And I don't think a lot of people really notice, but the manipulation on his son is so good to get him to just to start using the green as well. And eventually we get to the third movie where he's, Green Goblin 2.0. But in the second film, this is my biggest gripe with it, was Spider-Man's whole thing is never giving up no matter what. The scene where he's going through his mental block and he loses his powers, he takes his suit off and throws it in the trash. That's not my hero. That is something Spider-Man would never do, no matter what. But eventually, when he gets his powers back, and even then when he's trying to do the right thing. But I still didn't like that whole portrayal in itself. The point of Spider-Man is that no matter when it gets hard, is he still wants to do the right thing. Him throwing his suit away and just walking away that's not the true to the character. And then that one scene where he's by the hot dog stand, he hears the sirens go off, he looks over, just takes a bite and turns around. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. And then the third film, as funny as it was also a bit of a mess for me. I think my biggest gripe was Venom. I did not like necessarily the look, and then the portrayal. I will say Eddie Brock though was like that might be the greatest hater like vengeance I've ever seen. Someone going into a church and going, "God, I want you to kill Peter Parker," might be like one of the that might be one of the biggest disdains of downfall I've ever seen on someone.
Yeah.
But the scene where they're fighting and then Harry comes in and saves them. I thought the third act, like the final like 20 minutes of the film, were very good, but everything leading up, it just felt kind of like the story was just going left and right between like which villain, and then Venom was just like added on just because.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are some of your major scenes that stand out to you in the first? Break it down to each movie. Just one scene per movie, if you can. What's something that jumps out to you? Is like when you think about that movie, that's the scene that jumps out.
In Spider-Man 1, my favorite one is where Peter's like laying on the rooftop and Norman is talking to him as Green Goblin. Misery, misery, misery. And he's telling him, he's like, people, everyone loves a hero, but the moment you don't do something for one person, they spit in your face. I thought that was a great dialogue scene. In Spider-Man 2, I would have to go probably Doc Ock's redemption, where like the tentacles are still technically controlling him in that point in time at the end of it, where the whole building's crashing down, but he overpowers it and he tells like the tentacles like, "You listen to me," and he gets up and he just takes the fusion reactor core down with him. And then in the third film, probably Harry's sacrifice. Harry's sacrifice hit deep on me because those two had gone through. I think those are the only films where we actually see, Spider-Man with a Harry and a connection to Harry, like a deep bonding brotherhood. So seeing what he did for him, knowing that knowing that he thought he killed his dad
Mm-hmm.
and everything that just went on, those were probably my best moments.
For sure.
And
I
then
think
I can't
okay,
forget
go
the
ahead.
iconic dance scene out of the tuxedo place where he's in all black. And that's it.
That's fire, right? That's fire.
Yeah.
I think for me, like when I think about that original trilogy, I mean, one is I really enjoyed it from the moment I saw it on. Like I felt it was great. A third movie, notwithstanding, definitely kind of a mess, but still, like the Tobey Maguire portrayal was really great. I thought, this is one I know Kirsten Dunst had come on the scene when she was younger for Interview with the Vampire, but this was kind of a big role for her, kind of a big blockbuster role for her that I think put her in that stratosphere, and she did more after it. But I thought their relationship was pretty good. Not as chemistry wise, not as good as Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, but they
Oh,
still, I felt like in these movies, it felt like that they were there together. I think the big thing that stands out to me about, and we're going to see it later also in No Way Home, but just the fact that the villains, at least Doc Ock and Green Goblin, are both villains that and I think the Sandman, they're villains that didn't mean to be villains. They were trying, something happened to them, or they it was an accident, or the experiment they were trying to do went bad, and that turned them, and it wasn't their will. It wasn't Norman Osborn's will to become a villain. It wasn't Doc Ock's will to become a villain. He was just trying to build this technology, and it went haywire, went south. So I think that's an interesting dynamic too, with even when we get into the Andrew Garfield ones with Lizard. It's like they didn't mean to be bad. They're just, the technology that they were trying to produce turned them bad. And so I think that's an interesting dynamic that I see in most of these the Spider-Man films. Uh, and I think, watching all of these is the only way that you can fully get the beauty and the power and the emotional depth of No Way Home. You have to have seen these films for it to really hit. Now it's fun and it's exciting. My boys loved it, but I said, when we rewatch it after you've seen the other ones, like you're going to have a totally different experience watching it, and you're going to be emotionally taken over. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the Sam Raimi trilogy, with, even though the third one kind of went a little south, I think it still is held in high regard. And some would even say that Spider-Man 2 is the best, one of those in that list of where the sequel surpassed the original. Where do you stand on that, Chris?
Like Spider-Man 2 being the best? I
Better
100%
than,
agree.
yeah.
I 100% agree. I think when I did my ranking of, like, even the animated films of every Spider-Man film, it was in my top 3. That is one of the best films ever. Fun fact, what's it called? In the scene where Doc Ock and Spider-Man are fighting on the clock tower and Spider-Man is trying to rescue his aunt, every time he hits Doc Ock, he actually knocks him out, but the tentacles, like, reawaken his consciousness. I don't know if you guys
Nice.
knew that.
Yeah. No,
I didn't. That's cool.
that's really awesome. No, I can do agree with this one too. Like that I think it's it what's interesting too is I read an article when the second movie came out about the difficulty of superhero movies after the first film, because a lot of sequels don't work great, and it's because we like the kind of discovery of power, the journey of using them. That's like a trope that we've seen so many times, and it's very easy to tell that story in the sense that we know the beats that we're going to have. But once your hero becomes the hero, what now? How do you make it the second movie interesting, because he's already got his powers, he knows how to use them, and he can stop anybody, it seems. So how do you make the second movie have any more depth than that? And I think Spider-Man 2 is a good blueprint for that, to take it a little deeper, to build those relationships, with Doc Ock and him. I think that just set the stage for the emotional journey that our hero is going to go on. Not just this kind of, I'm just going to go punch my way and win the day. It's like, no, there's so much more going on, so much more depth happening. And I think that's why it stands out for sure. So let's go ahead and jump into Backlot Breakdown. POPpaGoss, what you got for the Sam Raimi trilogy?
Yeah, I mean, super. You guys did a great job explaining all that, and Chris, you picked some really great scenes too from each one. I think that's cool. I mean, this has kind of become at the time the blueprint going forward for superhero movies in general. So like we have a lot to thank for, especially for the first two in the trilogy. And the third one, as much of a mess as it is, there are little bits in here and there are that stand out that are really cool. So overall a fun trilogy, but at the time, the first Spider-Man was the first movie to gross 100 million its opening weekend domestically, not worldwide. No movie had ever done that at that time, even adjusted for inflation. But now, I mean, there's been so many movies that I think Spider-Man 1 is like still in the top 20, but I mean, we've had the two big Avengers movies, we've had the Jurassic World movies, Star Wars movies, so there's been a lot that have surpassed it, but that was pretty cool at the time, the early 2000s. Very inventive. The visual effects team, led by John Dykstra. He was actually nominated for an Oscar for the first Spider-Man and the second one. He actually won Best Visual Effects for Spider-Man 2. Obviously, there's so much cool stuff in that. He also won for Star Wars: A New Hope. So that's cool. We're having Chris on. We just did the Star Wars ones, but same visual effects team worked on Spider-Man and the old Star Wars movies, which is fun. He actually won an honorary Oscar for designing the first ever computer controlled motion control system. They called it the Dixtraflex for A New Hope.
Wow.
But he got an honorary award years later for being very inventive in that. There's also part of Raimi's like camera team and camera operators. They invented the spider cam for the first movie going forward, and it was created and it could drop 50 stories, which is like, I don't know, 500, 600 feet or whatever. And it could travel up to, I believe, like over 3,000 feet. But it would get the POV shots of Spider-Man, mostly like, web slinging and all that. So that's super cool. I love stuff like that. Sam Raimi obviously was tapped to direct this pretty much from the start. But I know James Cameron's name was thrown out there early on. I know David Fincher was in talks to do a Spider-Man movie. He dropped out. Chris Columbus was supposed to direct it, and then he dropped out to go do the first Harry Potter movie at the time. So he couldn't do it. But Sam Raimi is a huge comic book fan. I mean, he's got him and we just talked on our Evil Dead episode with our buddy Chris about, him and Bruce Campbell went to the same high school and like they just collected comic books and watched Three Stooges and stuff. But Sam Raimi has like over 25,000 comic books in his collection. And I think obviously Spider-Man means a lot to him. And the studio was actually like super unsure about Tobey Maguire at the time. So they didn't really want to have him casted as Spider-Man. And they made this really cool, I think it's on the bonus features for sure, but you can probably find it on YouTube nowadays. But it's really cool if any of you've never seen it, our audience, but it's Tobey Maguire like in like a dark, barely lit alleyway, and he's like doesn't have a shirt on. He showed how like jacked he got for Spider-Man, and he just beats the crap out of all these guys. And it was kind of like a little short film almost that basically got the studio to back his portrayal and get him casted. So it's pretty fun. And then Spider-Man 3, at the time when that was made, was actually the most expensive film ever made, at like 258 million. But obviously it's been passed heavily. Star Wars Force Awakens actually destroyed that number by, I think their total budget was like 500 something $1 million in the end because of all the stuff they had to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, at the time, when Spider-Man 3 came out, it was the most expensive film ever made. And then that got passed. But overall, great. I mean, it's a very fun trilogy. It's what most of us, grew up on. I remember what a big deal the first Spider-Man was when it came out in theaters. I was
Mm-hmm.
in middle school at the time, and I remember my parents took me to go see. I think I was in 8th grade, and it was great. I mean, we had never seen something like that, like the X-Men had come out a few years before that. And that was really fun too. But like this was a true like comic book adaptation, and
Mm-hmm.
just very well done. Like the first one there were so many cool scenes, and like you guys were talking about earlier, dressing in PJs or costumes or whatever. Like Spider-Man, it doesn't get Spider-Man and Batman are two of the most like beloved comic book characters of all time. So it was cool to like see it on the big screen and just let your imagination kind of come to life. So
Yep.
very fun.
Absolutely. One of the things I wanted to bring up was that when there was a video store called Blockbuster. I don't know if any of you, our audience, I'm sure some of us have heard of that if you haven't seen it. But Blockbuster was a video store you could go rent movies. They ran a special when the first Spider-Man came out on DVD, where if you bought this $30 card, you'd get 10 free rentals, and you'd get the DVD when it came out, and you'd get your name entered to win a life-size Tobey Maguire statue of Tobey Maguire's cast of Spider-Man, and it was life-size. I got a
Man.
call randomly one day when I was living in North Carolina, and they said, "You've won our Spider-Man statue." I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me. Are you serious?" Like, I'm dead serious. Like, that's awesome. So I had to figure out how to get that statue into my car that was a little Saturn SL2. And so I finally figured out a way to get him in. And so he was in my guest room for 4 or 5 years, and scared anybody that stayed over, friends coming to town, parents coming to town, like, sorry, Spidey's going to be in your room, standing there like this. So that was pretty crazy. But to me, it was like at that point, DVDs were still like $20 anyway.
Oh yeah.
And then the movie rentals, like they were $3, $4. So it was just a no brainer to do that special. And then I didn't have any clue that I was even entered into that contest, but I was, and I won that. So that was kind of fun for the Spider-Man movies. One of the things I wanted to mention too, based on kind of what you were saying, Josh, with the Sony owned the rights to produce these films. At this point in the history of Marvel, they had not developed their own studio to develop these films. They were selling the rights to different studios to make those films. They were still on by name only, pretty much. That's why it says Marvel Studios at the front, but it's not, or it says Marvel at the front, not Marvel Studios. So Sony was producing these films, and in order for them to keep the rights, they had to do another Spider-Man movie fairly quickly after the Spider-Man 3 film in order to keep the rights. And so they jumped in fairly. I think I remember feeling like, wow, this is really fast to have another different Spider-Man character or another person playing Spider-Man and to reboot the franchise only 5 years later. Because we hadn't really seen that a whole lot up at that point. So 2012, we get The Amazing Spider-Man. They've recast Peter Parker as with Andrew Garfield. They introduce Gwen Stacy as the love interest instead of MJ for these two movies. We get a whole new host of villains. We do get a Harry Osborn. We do get a Harry Osborn and a kind of the beginnings of a Goblin type character in the second one. And the studio was really hoping. I mean, all the talk when Amazing Spider-Man 2 was coming out was they're going to do a Sinister Six movie, and so it felt like they were really trying to throw all these villains into Amazing Spider-Man 2, similar to Spider-Man 3, throw them all in there, and it just kind of got a little bloated. But it was because they were trying to get the stepping stones to having, Sinister Six, and they even had like the Vulture kind of wings. And I think one of the scenes they were going down, you could see Vulture. But basically, it's got a similar story. Uncle Ben is killed. Peter gets bit. Dr. Kirk Connors is the villain in the first one. He becomes Lizard. Gwen Stacy's dad is the cop that's trying to figure out who the Spider-Man is and try to take him down. And then they work together at the end. Really fun, really great scenes there at the end of that first movie where they're having that fight. But again, Peter doesn't want to kill him. He just wants to rescue him and save him and turn him back to being human again. That's his goal. Spider-Man 2, we get introduced to Harry Osborn a little bit more deeply. He's turning into the Goblin. We've got Rhino plays a pretty key role in the beginning and the end of the film. And then we've got Jamie Foxx as Electro being turned into an electric controlling villain by falling into a pool of electric eels played by Jamie Foxx. And then Spider-Man has to fight off all of them. But unfortunately, he's not able to save Gwen from a big, huge fall, which would have been known by the people that read the comics, but I'd kind of heard about it, and so I knew it was coming. But if he hadn't read the comics, it would have been a real shock to have that happen. And then it kind of ends with somewhat of a cliffhanger, hoping that we would get more with Andrew Garfield, but this one put that trilogy on hold, and we just got stuck with the two movies. Chris, what are your thoughts? Amazing Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield. Let's hear it.
I thought what's it called? This one saddens me because I would say Andrew was like, it was like Henry Cavill. It was like the perfect casting, and the script was just not there. But I actually liked Amazing Spider-Man 1. Like I think if I rated it, I think I gave it like a 7. Like I thought it was a solid start. I wasn't too big of a fan of like the lizard design. I don't really like how they tried to like make him a lizard, but like kind of humanoid his face. That was like one of my things. I was like, well, he's a lizard. I don't know why are we trying to humanize, a reptile? But skipping all that, I thought the introduction to him was great. I really loved how they actually like kind of showed like the smarts to Peter Parker. This was one of the things that like in the first movie, he sneaks into this before he gets bit. He sneaks into the Oscorp Tower to go on like a little field trip to go see Gwen and like observe everything. And we see how he's the only one to answer any of the questions that Dr. Kirk Connors is asking. And then, he goes into the room he's not supposed to with all the strings of radioactive spiders. One falls on his neck and bites him. But I thought them showing like the actual brilliance and brains to Spider-Man was great, because not a lot of people know that Peter Parker is like very highly intelligent. We just don't get shown it a lot. Gwen Stacy, in comics, it's always MJ, but like portrayed in live action, that this was arguably the greatest like loved romance seance that's been portrayed like in the movies. Out of all, Sam Raimi trilogies, the Tom Holland films, this was like the greatest love interest that we've seen. And then Amazing Spider-Man 2 was, like you said, I think they were just trying to throw too many things together to kind of set up for a third film. Like, what's it called? In the introduction to Rhino was a little weird because Rhino is a big buff Russian, like in a rhino suit. He's not a short, bald, fat guy, and then he gets put into that mechanized thing. I'm like, that's something, but I guess whatever. I think my favorite thing is when someone says like, they love Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I've seen this online like so many times. I don't know if you guys know the opening clip where he's like on the truck, the semi, while Alexi's driving it, and he's just talking to him and just saying quips, yada yada yada. And then he's like, "All right, I'll be right back." He swings away, and you just see Alexi drive into like 8 cars in an intersection. And I think the greatest thing is like, all right, we're saying like there's 3 people per car. Spider-Man is not just swinging away; he's gonna do something. So I think that was also another gripe. I'm like, this guy's too busy making jokes instead of saving people. Which, I mean, his humor is supposed to be both, but we're prioritizing one or the other. And then Electro, not a lot of people know this. In the comics, there is the variant of Electro where he's blue. Like that wasn't necessarily an issue. I think it was his motive. It was, you don't know who I am, so now I'm just gonna vaporize the city. I was like, all right, we get it. You didn't get hugged as a kid. Cry me a river. But and then Harry Osborn's same thing was a little. I feel like the writing for the motives just there wasn't valid or like enough reasons. Like he didn't want to give him his blood because Spider-Man's like, this is what it did to me. Like I don't know what this could do to you. It's like you're already sick. Like I put this in you. Who knows what could happen? And he just flips out and gets mad. It's like, all right, there's like both these two villains just have daddy issues if we really look at it that way. And then the Rhino villain was just, he was in the film. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
But I did like at the end. That was one of the biggest things I was hoping for is you could see like in the basement of the tower how they had like the different suits. Like they had the Oscorp arms, they had the glider,
Mhm.
the Rhino suit again. I was like, wow, this is setting up for a Sinister Six, and then we never got it.
Yeah. And then we do just very quickly get a cut scene or a post credit scene in Morbius where they're trying to say, "Hey, we're going to do a Sinister Six movie, maybe."
Yeah.
So anyway,
And then there was also they released like the uncut version of the film in Amazing Spider-Man 2. You know how at the end where Peter's standing at Gwen's grave, yeah, like his dad walks up to him. I was like, this is just something that doesn't need to be written.
Mhm. For sure. I kind of piggyback on what you said. I think the Andrew Garfield was a great choice for Spider-Man. I think the quips and the humor and the jokes were all on point. He was great at delivering that. It gave us I think a lot of people say this is more comic accurate version of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, at least in those areas. I think for me too, I liked I liked the first movie. I thought the second movie, I was mentioning to Josh before, it was like Batman Forever, Edward Nygma. Jamie Foxx is doing a great Edward Nygma impression where he's the meek, mild mannered guy that doesn't get any praise for his work, and then he gets superpowers and he's going to destroy the world. So it was just kind of a little bit. It felt like a little bit more contrived from that. I did also want to mention Dane DeHaan as Harry Osborn. This was right at the point where he had gotten so much praise for that superhero. Was it called The Covenant?
Chronicle.
The Chronicle. Low budget superhero film. Great superhero film if you haven't seen it. He was praised for that movie and his role in that. And so this was kind of his first big budget following that. And it just didn't hit with audiences, unfortunately. He actually did that other one with Cara Delevingne, and it was a big sci-fi epic.
The Luc Besson movie.
Yeah, and that didn't go well, and so it's just feel really bad for the guy because he's obviously got great talent. It's just trying to find the projects that work for him. I did
Valerian.
Valerian, yeah. And so I did see that there's a movie that was just released. I think I got it for like $5 on Fandango at home, and it's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I grabbed it just because I wanted to support him. But Dane DeHaan is a great actor. This is just a interesting. I think the script and everything else involved didn't really set him up to succeed, at least for the audiences in Spider-Man 2. Um, but I think again the relationship, and I think they had started dating too between the first Amazing Spider-Man and the second Amazing Spider-Man. So in the second Amazing Spider-Man, there's a lot of great chemistry because they also have this off-screen chemistry that's already brewing. So it came through really well, which really set up that emotional pull that you want to have in that love relationship, so that when she is killed, you really feel it as the audience. Great, like I said, great casting. Just didn't follow through in the second film, but still, I think Andrew Garfield is a great Spider-Man. Josh, what you got, buddy?
Yeah, piggybacking on you guys too, like, that was a perfect reference to Henry Cavill because, like,
Mhm.
we love Henry Cavill as Superman, like, he's so awesome, but we don't always after Man of Steel, we just don't get consistent good writing for his character and stuff, so, I think the same thing happened, and Andrew Garfield, I think he's a tremendous act I mean, even after Spider-Man, he's gone on and been nominated for Oscars and done these awesome roles, and he just seems like a really genuine human being as well. So, I was kind of pulling for him. Luckily, we'll talk about it for the Tom Holland ones, but he got to kind of redeem himself since he didn't get a third movie. But the first Amazing Spider-Man was actually the first movie to use the Red Epic digital cameras that were really big around that time. That was the first movie to actually use those. Um, and fun fact, going back to the Maguire Spider-Man, the first movie in the Raimi verse came out on the 40th anniversary of the character of Spider-Man.
Nice.
This Amazing Spider-Man came out on the 50th anniversary of the character, so I thought that was kind of cool. They timed it exactly 10 years so they
Yeah.
could have another anniversary release. In Before Amazing Spider-Man was greenlit, Raimi was supposed to do a fourth film. They were actually like in pre-production, and they were going to have the Vulture, and John Malkovich was going to play the Vulture. And I think I mean, I don't know if they had started filming a lot yet, but they had like the costumes and they were getting prepared for it and stuff. But it just, things fell through. They also, I think, Felicia Hardy, Black Cat, was supposed to be in that Spider-Man 4, played by, I think
I
Anne
was
Hathaway.
robbed.
I
Yeah, I
know,
think
right?
Anne Hathaway was supposed to, I think I read somewhere that she was cast as her, and then, obviously everything fell through, which is funny because a few years later, she would play Catwoman in Dark Knight Rises, so
That's fun.
pretty she had Cat on her radar, I guess. Um Garfield's Spider-Man, and then obviously Tom Holland, different from the Tobey Spider-Man. They have more comic accurate. They have the web shooters instead of like naturally coming out of the hands or the wrists or whatever. So that's kind of interesting. And then they later on in No Way Home, they have that really fun moment
Yeah.
on the thing where they're asking each
Like,
other
what?
about they're like, "Wait, what?" And Toby's kinda it's almost like he's embarrassed to
Yeah.
not he doesn't wanna talk about it. Um, The Amazing Spider-Man also was, James Cameron was in early talks again, so he came up a few times for the Tobey Maguire ones, and then obviously they brought him back in for interviews to maybe direct Amazing Spider-Man. And he didn't. David Fincher also came back into talks. Two other names that I didn't know about, that are kind of yeah. Looking back, you can't really. I'm glad they didn't go with them. Not that they're not good filmmakers, but it just doesn't really make sense. Wes Anderson, I guess, was in talks, which I don't know how that would have gone over. But
Yeah.
I love Wes Anderson, but that's
Sure.
strange to think about. And then Catherine Bigelow, who is a fantastic director, but and
Yeah.
obviously she
Hurt
has
Locker.
ties to
Yeah.
Cameron as well. And then Amazing Spider-Man, the costume in the first film, um, I think it worked really well, and it was so comic accurate because they made it based off of like acrobat suits and outfits. So it made the suit look longer, more, skinnier, like in the comics, especially like the Amazing Spider-Man comics. And so he was more agile. His movements looked more crisp and stuff. So I really liked that. I didn't the eyes for some reason. I they were there was something about the mask that was off. I liked the suit as a whole. I liked the long spider, like the dark spider symbol, with the long legs and stuff. I thought that was cool. But yeah, something about the mask it didn't always look great in the first movie.
Was it the
The
yellow
second
lenses?
movie, yeah, it was just kind of I don't know, just going back and rewatching them, especially, I was like, I wanna love this suit because I do like the first Amazing Spider-Man, but the suit's just, like, so odd. Like, if they would've put the suit in the second Amazing Spider-Man, that was one of the best parts of that movie, I think, like, that opening shot of him, Sprang and I were talking before we started recording, like, they show the symbol, and it's all dark, and then it's him, like, falling through the sky, and it just looks so cool. I remember that was part of the first trailer that came out, and, just that whole sequence of him, like, point of view, that was something that they did different in The Amazing Spider-Man, they didn't do in the Tobey Maguire. It was, like, the point of view web slinging, like, swinging from building to building and, like,
Mhm.
actually showing his, like, point of view. I thought that was a super cool touch, like, I thought it was really fun. Um, kind of a fun, little link to Alfred Hitchcock. There's a in the first movie in Peter's room. There's a Rear Window poster in the back,
Mhm.
and the protagonist for Rear Window, obviously James Stewart, is he goes around taking pictures of people, and Peter Parker is also he's going around taking pictures of people. So I thought that was kind of fun. Really cool on the music, Scott, the score side. Hans Zimmer did the music for the second Amazing
Okay.
Spider-Man. Danny Elfman did the music for the, Sam Raimi Spider-Man, and they both worked on not only live action Spider-Man scores, but they also did
Batman.
Batman
Yeah.
scores. So I think that's super cool because I those are two of my favorite comic book heroes too. So I just thought that was super fun. Um, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is believe it or not, I mean, there's been so many movies filmed in New York City, but it was the largest film production in New York City history. Like, it was like the biggest set that they've ever had. One of my favorite Stan Lee cameos is in Amazing Spider-Man 1 when they're in the library and he's got the headphones on
Yes.
and they're like breaking through the wall. I think is one of the funniest cameos that Stan Lee. Yeah, he doesn't really say anything in the scene, but it's just so funny because it's quiet with music playing and they're just bashing each other through library walls and stuff. Um, in the second one, Harry is, he's in the archive, his, like, father's archive, and, we saw what was supposed to be set up going back to talking about Sinister Six. We see, not only Dr. Connors, but we see, Ravencroft, which was the facility where they set everything up. Dr. Morbius shows up on that
Mm.
little thing, and then the Venom storage thing shows up as well, if you look really closely. So that was supposed to, I
Mhm.
guess, kind of make us think like, oh, maybe really are working on a Sinister Six, but who knows? So I just thought that was kind of fun. But overall, they're fun. But yeah, we just could have got stronger scripts, and it's also Paul Giamatti. Like I guess he's like he loves Rhino. Like he wanted that part so bad, and they kind of just didn't give
Sure, you
him the
can have it.
true Rhino part, like,
Yeah.
I mean, he was happy to be on set, but it's like, you could have actually, like, been like, Paul Giamatti's a great actor, so I think they could have done, like, a legit Rhino, but that's alright. It is what it is.
Very cool. Any final thoughts on Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, Chris?
Definitely like one of the best suits. I gotta wait to see Brand New Day's suit in person,
Ooh.
but that's like the only competition. Like as of right now, that still holds the crown for like the best suit that's like
Oh,
ever been
so
put to
pretty.
screen. The lenses, I love the long spider. Like I love that logo. That logo's so good.
Yeah, for sure.
Agreed.
And it felt just missed opportunity. Like everything was there. Like just amazing cast lineup, amazing. And a lot of people like to say it's like acting, but I'm like they had great actors. Like but they can only work with what they're given.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm like
absolutely.
we can't blame it all on the actors.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
The director's in charge. I mean, anything that the actors aren't doing right, it's the director's fault. And then but it also starts with a good script. But a director can make a bad script better, but a director can make a good script bad too. So it's just a matter of like it's all got to work together. So it's not just one person or one group. So before we jump to the last one, I'm sure you guys all have tons of Spider-Man comics. I have one from when I was a kid. I thought I'd pull it out and show it because it's got Vulture on
Oh,
the
nice.
cover flying
Oh,
at Spidey.
that's cool.
Yeah.
When did
That
that
was
one come out?
oh man, this is the 25th anniversary, 1990 1996 Marvel Comics Group. So
Hmm.
Vulture's back and Spidey's got him.
Dang.
Yeah, Marvel Tales starring Spider-Man. So
And it's
and
John Malkovich.
and because we've seen in Brand New Day, and we're about to start talking about the Tom Holland ones, in the same bag, I've got the Punisher Warzone.
Ooh.
Nice.
So
Which,
classic.
yeah, I'm stoked to see
Yeah.
John Bernthal in Brand New Day.
Yeah, this is number 3 in May, probably around the same time. So
Oh, Aunt May.
yes.
Just kidding.
Yeah. So
Oh, and also real quick on Mark Webb, who directed the 2 Amazing Spider-Man. He hadn't really done a ton of big stuff, but like he done a lot of music videos and stuff, like a lot of music videos mainly. And then he hasn't really done much since. He did, not for good reasons, but he did direct the Snow White that recently came out. That was,
yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I heard it was like really, really, really bad. Um,
Yeah.
2.2 out of 10 stars on IMDb, bad, but
Yeah.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
yeah, so he had a chance to redeem himself, but he still didn't. So
Yeah. It's too
I
bad.
just wanted to let our audience know that.
Just talk trash about him. I get it,
Well, and it's like, man, your name is Mark Webb, and you
Like,
did
you did a
you had
poor
a
job
chance to be engraved in history with.
Yeah, he
You
is.
gave us some cool stuff in your Spider. Like,
Yeah.
there's some definitely that. I agree with Chris though. Like that suit is that man,
Like,
it's so
the
gorgeous.
the visuals for those movies are like stunning. Like, even in the first one, the visuals are like beautiful.
Oh yeah.
It's such a pretty looking movie.
Well, and it's like the first one especially. It's I know fans at first were kind of they didn't know what to think because it went up like a darker, not quite like Batman Dark Knight dark, but like I mean it was
There's
Andrew
a
gave quite a good performance of like being just
Mhm.
devastated and brooding and
Yeah.
sad and
there was a lot of despair. It wasn't very
yeah,
hopeful for Spider-Man movies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, cool. Speaking of hopeful, we've got one of the craziest deals ever made in the history of Hollywood. As we talked about before, we talked about the Amazing Spider-Man trilogy. Sony had bought the rights to own the Spider-Man movies, anything on Spider-Man screen, Spider-Man and his Rogues Gallery. Sony owns it all. They can do whatever they want with it. But as we just saw, the third movie of the first trilogy, the second movie of the second iteration did poorly, and they were struggling with how to do Spider-Man again, how to make him solid. Meanwhile, we've got Marvel Studios had kicked off in 2008 with Iron Man and was building this incredible Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they're having great success. Fans always wanted to see what would a Spider-Man look like in this Marvel Cinematic Universe. And finally, after much deliberation, and I'm sure tons and tons of talks and sides combating against each other, they finally came to a deal where they were going to let Spider-Man be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they were basically going to co-produce these new Spider-Man films. This was revolutionary. I don't know that I've ever heard of this ever happening. I remember when there was a lot of talk going on, a lot of pundits on YouTube and elsewhere were saying this is never going to happen. This is just ludicrous. Studios don't give up the rights to their characters, but it worked. And Marvel, because of their success in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Sony basically said, and Amy Pascal, who's basically the producer over there, basically said, yep, let's go ahead and do this. This is our best chance at having a successful Spider-Man series. And so in 2017, well, actually, before that, in Captain America Civil War, we get introduced in some amazing ways to Spider-Man. Tony Stark goes to introduce himself to Tom Holland's character, Peter Parker, reveals to him that he knows that he's Spider-Man and he's going to help him out with making him a better suit. And then the best line ever, under ruse, and then Tom Holland, Peter Parker, steals Captain America's shield and lands on an ambulance, said, hey guys, how's it going? It's just like the best introduction to this character. So great. So in Captain America Civil War, we get him in those a few scenes kind of introducing him, and then that fight scene, he's doing some amazing things. Hey, remember that really old movie, Empire Strikes Back? Just quipping left and right, making all the other actors and characters feel old. We get introduced to him there, but then he gets his own standalone movie in Spider-Man Homecoming, where Tony Stark basically says, go home, don't worry about it, we've got this, we don't need you anymore. And he's feeling rejected and all that stuff, and so he's going to try to do big things while he's at home, and ends up getting into some trouble. And Iron Man sends his suit to help him one time, and then he actually shows up one time and basically gives him a big talking to. He also finds out that there's a guy that's Vulture, played by Michael Keaton. He's taking a lot of the technology found from the Battle of New York in Avengers 1, and he's using it to sell on the black market to make money, because he can't make money doing the scavenger work that he was doing before, because the government's taken over. So anyway, we get into that. Come to find out, that's his girlfriend's dad, and they have a battle at the end of that movie that's really, really solid. He gets captured and put in prison. Far From Home picks up right after Avengers Endgame. Peter's on a trip to Europe with his buds and all of his school classmates, and they come to find out that there's this guy that's doing this Mysterio is doing crazy things. Come to find out, he's using holographic technology to make everybody think he's this big bad villain, but he's really just kind of masking it with all these cameras and everything. And Spider-Man has to put on a black suit, and they call him, what is the Black Monkey or something,
Spider Monkey, yeah.
Spider Monkey. Oh, so great. That was so fun. But anyway, so he ends up having to try to take him down at the end of that one. But what ends up happening at the end of that movie is J. Jonah Jameson, who is the first character, well, maybe not the first character, because M is in the Pierce Brosnan, Judi Dench is in the Pierce Brosnan Bonds and the Daniel Craig Bonds, but it was pretty rare to see a character be in multiple iterations of the same character in the same movies. They bring J.K. Warwick back. That's right. That's his name, right?
Simmons.
J.K. Simmons. Thank you. They bring back J.K. Simmons to play J. Jonah Jameson. He jumps on a big screen in the middle of New York and says, Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and that cuts to black. So great end there. And then in Spider-Man No Way Home, everybody knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and he goes to Doctor Strange and says, hey, we've got to get rid of this. And so he's doing this spell to try to get rid of everybody knowing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And he says, in the middle of it, he calls, oh, but I want this person, I want this person, I want this person. And Doctor Strange gets things all mixed up, ends up opening a portal and brings in all of the villains from all the Spider-Man movies that had come before, most of them, into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he begins trying to capture them all, and then ends up, while he's doing that, he's trying to heal them of their problems. So we get Doc Ock, we get Goblin, we get Electro, we get Sandman, we get Lizard, pulls them all in, tries to heal them all. At the end of the day, Goblin pretty much resorts back to being the villain, and they have a huge battle. Not before Aunt May now gets killed in one of the buildings, which gives us that kind of Uncle Ben moment, because we didn't get it with this Tom Holland version in the earlier movies. They're just like, something happened to Uncle Ben. We know what happened. We don't need to show it. So at the end of this film, we get introduced. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, while Peter Parker is trying to handle all of these villains, MJ, played by Zendaya, and his buddy Nate are trying to find him. In the meanwhile, Ned, thank you.
Ned.
MJ and Ned are trying to find Peter because they've lost him, and he uses this Doctor Strange ring, and he's able to open up portals, and they call, and who comes through the portal? It is not Tom Holland's Spider-Man, it is Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Or was it was Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man first, right?
No,
yeah, Andrew first, and then
they find Tobey.
Yeah.
And so now, not only do we have the villains from all the Spider-Man movies, but we have all the iterations of Spider-Man in the same movie. Great humor, great conversations between those three characters. At the end of the day, they all work together to take down and capture all of the villains. And Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, who missed the chance to save Gwen Stacy, gets to save MJ from falling down the thing. And as Josh and I were talking before, we were both in tears at this moment in the theater. And we are not sad or not too scared to share that with the world, because it's incredibly emotional. At the end of the day, they save it and they try to put it all back, but it does kind of open up some things in the multiverse for the overall Marvel Cinematic Universe, including a nice cameo from Tom Hardy's Venom, Eddie Brock, at a bar in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is another kind of crossover between the Sonyverse and Marvel. So this is Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I could catch flack from viewers, but this is probably my favorite. My favorite is Andrew, but I think the best that has been portrayed is Tom. This has been, and in my ranking, I have Spider-Man Homecoming as probably like the second best live action Spider-Man film. I don't think I could put it above Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi trilogy, but Spider-Man Homecoming is one of the best films that they had released. And not a lot of people like to call it Iron Boy Jr., but it's like I look at it, I'm like, this is him learning the responsibility that, this is what it is. And, obviously we didn't have Uncle Ben, but like this is him learning what responsibility is. My favorite scene is the scene where, Vulture like destroyed the building on him, and he's looking at it, the rubble, and like there's the puddle, and like in the puddle his reflection, like you see half his face, and half his face is the Spider-Man mask. And that's when, prior he's calling out for help, and then he looks down, he realizes he's like I am the help. Like I have to do this. He gets up, and like
Chills,
you get the comic scene where he literally goes on his 2 feet and lifts the rubble off of him, and like just a building. And I'm like, this is Spider-Man. Like the realization that like this is what he has to do. He is the help. And he gets up and he gets the building off of him, and he goes and saves the day. Far From Home, I think this is the first film we have that's not in, New York.
Mm-hmm.
This one's obviously a lot lower on the Spider-Man films. Mainly because like, Mysterio too. Like I loved Jake Gyllenhaal. I just didn't like how they tried to make like Mysterio more of like an Iron Man villain than like it being like a Spider-Man villain. But the what's it called? The hologram tech. I did kind of like the little switch, how they, how Peter's, doubting himself the whole time. He's like, man, Mr. Stark wouldn't want this from you. He's like, you're the type of person that, would deserve this type of like power to control and have to do like the best amount of good here. And he basically just uses those for, his hologram tech to make him look like, he's fighting off like the big elementals that they had going on. And then I think, what's it called? In Far From Home, one of my favorite scenes is though, like going back to how I was talking about how, they show the brilliance of Spider-Man, like how smart he is. In the Far From Home, when he's fighting Mysterio on the bridge, and he's like grabbing parts of the car and like the signs, like build a shield and like the little hammer swingy thing, like the mace. Like that's him using his brain to like, he's using his environment around him to help create an advantage against, thousands of killer robots with miniguns on them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second best Spider Sense portrayal, Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio makes the entire bridge go dark. And, he closes his eyes. He's like, come on, Peter Tingle. And he's just, he's dodging and weaving. He's cartwheeling. He's doing backflips. He's grabbing the thing and he's punching the other ones with it. And then you see him when he hands them the glasses, he's like looking at him and he grabs the fist to his right. And that's like the real Mysterio. I was like, that's one of the best that's probably like the second best Spider-Sense film
Moment,
portrayal that
yeah.
we've seen. I think the first one, when I get to No Way Home, probably know what I'm talking about. And then No Way Home, just the icing on the cake. I think a lot of people liked it at first, and then a lot of reviews came out like a couple years later, like, oh, this film's not as good as we thought it was. Nostalgia bait, this, and that. And I was like, I thought it was great. Like like Peter just not talking during the spell, and some of the villains get brought here, and he's basically like, the reason they die is because of like their powers, like like this is what leads them to die. So he's like, maybe I can help. Like, we can't send them back to die. Like, we have to do something. So he fights Strange, and undoubtedly he wins. Again, another part of his brilliance is when they're in the mirror dimension, and he says some big science term that I'm not going to try to pronounce, but he's like, is that like an omni spinning whatever? And he's shooting webs and going back and forth, and eventually they collide, and it ties up Strange, and he goes back, and he starts working on cures for the villains, and it almost works until, well, he gets Doc Ock under control. I thought that was great, and then we get, in my definition, the best Spider Sense is where he senses Goblin taking over Norman. Like the screen goes, like the audio goes dark, and like you can hear like a ringing, and Peter's like looking all confused, and he like takes a breath, and then he webs his hand, and then you hear Green Goblin take over Norman. He's like, that's some neat trick, that sense of yours. And then we get the whole sequence of them fighting. I loved how he got body slammed through like 4 different floors of the building. And then we get the undoubted sad scene of Aunt May dying, and with that we get with the great power will always come great responsibility. Don't worry, I was also in mad tears for that as well. But definitely, and then they did the thing from the comics where they have the 3 Spider-Mans. He's like, Peter, and he's like, and they all like, yeah, and then they try to converse with each other. He's like, Peter. It's like, that's
So good.
Yeah.
very, very great.
Absolutely. I failed to mention the fact that we also get Spider-Man in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, and that is a huge emotional point of the movie for Tony Stark. But even just the fun, he makes the others crack about, hey, have you guys seen that really old movie Alien? And another joke like he did in Civil War. So he's a great character in those as well. I love, like, hey, Peter Parker, from Captain Marvel when she shows up and like he's got the gauntlet. And it was just this cute interaction in all the movies. He plays a very young version of Peter Parker. He plays it young the entire time. Earnest, wants to be the best kid he can be, wants to be what Tony Stark's wants. It's like this, he's got this childlike wonder and awe around things. Like, I'm not feeling good. He's just like, I don't feel, something's happening, and then, oh, I was on Doctor Strange. It's just, he plays it like a child, and that kind of young Peter Parker. It seems like in Brand New Day, he's in college now, and now I think also with the fact that he's producing it as well, I think there's a sense where we're going to see a more established or more mature Peter Parker, because now he's got the weight of life. He's been through all that he's been through. And Tony's gone. He's going to kind of be he's going to kind of be on his own, and he's got to figure out life on his own because nobody remembers who he is. And so I think that's going to be an interesting switch in, and I think that's why they didn't have home in this subtitle, Homecoming. You've got Far From Home, No Way Home. I think now we've got Brand New Day. This is a new Peter Parker. He's much more mature and all that stuff. So it'll be fun to see that. Yeah, I agree. I think he's gotten the most shots at being Spider-Man and portraying Spider-Man on screen. I think 6 movies now that he's portrayed Spider-Man. And he's done it great. Like, it feels authentic. It feels very much like Spidey. All the scenes that you mentioned, Chris, I was getting chills hearing you talk about them. So great. And I think I think it's also in Far From Home where he goes and begins to create his suit using Tony Stark's computer desk, right?
When they're on the jet with Happy going back.
Yeah, and Happy's like smiling, because Far From Home is right after we just saw Tony Stark die in Endgame. And so Far From Home is also the completion of that phase in the Marvel way that they phase the movies, is like, hey, this is the completion. And it's kind of like that moment is somewhat signifying like, hey, Peter Parker is the new Tony Stark a little bit. in that scene, and Happy's just kind of sitting there smiling at like that. I knew you had it in you, kid. And like you said, Chris, like the whole doubt that we sense in that, it's a great second. If you were just looking at the Spider-Man trilogy, you kind of get a little bit of that same as the Raimi trilogy, in the sense that you get like the establishment of all of his powers. He's learning his powers, and that's what's so fun about the first movie. The second movie, he doubts himself, struggles, and then he finally comes back and realizes he's the power, that he has all the strength inside himself to do what he needs to do. And then in the third one, you get the collaboration of all the villains and the big epic battle. And it really is a completion to not only the Marvel Spider-Man trilogy, but the entire Sony verse. It's all just this great redemption of all those characters. Because I mean, Tobey Maguire hasn't really been in a lot of movies either. He's not been in the social consciousness of the world. He's kind of been left to the side. Spider-Man No Way Home, we get a little bit of that redemption for not only his Peter Parker, but for him as an actor, I think. And I think that redemption of like just the conversation of those guys, and I think that was just more improv. They're just like, we need something, just guys talk, and they just end up just kind of spitballing and kind of improvising the whole conversation about who's one, who's two, who's three. He's like, yeah, I'm three. It's like, but then like that whole negative self-talk, like, no, you are not that, all of that just felt so real and authentic. And it allowed the audience to also cheer all three of those guys on. I just thought that was another layer to that. And one other thing I want to say before we jump to Josh is, I think the thing that blew me away about No Way Home was the fact that in most superhero movies, it's all about taking the villain down, whether that's capturing them, killing them, beating them up. Spider-Man No Way Home, Peter Parker's main goal is to save everyone, is to bring redemption to these guys, because he knows that he doesn't want to just send them back to die. He wants to help heal them. And I just thought that was an incredibly powerful stance to take. It didn't end up going that way, but the heart of Peter Parker, like you said from the beginning of this episode, is that hopefulness. He had a hope that he could help save these guys and make them normal again, so that they wouldn't have to be destroyed once they went back to their own universes. So that's all I got, but I'm really excited to see where we go from here. Josh, let's hear it.
Yeah, and before I get into my stuff, piggybacking on talking about, him being young, like Tom Holland, when he did Homecoming, he was only 19, and when Maguire did like the first Sam Raimi one, he was like 25, 26 already. Andrew was like 24 to 26 or something like that. So he really was the youngest one we've had so far. I think that really helps. Plus, Tom is very agile in real life. Like he,
Yeah.
before he got announced as Spider-Man, he posted all these clips of him doing like actual, parkour stuff and backflips off the ground. And so like, it's crazy. And then I was gonna say something. Oh, and then I just think it's funny if you go back, especially to like No Way Home, but when they were doing press for like, this was probably a couple months before No Way Home came out. There's that great interview where they point out to all three, Zendaya, Tom Holland, and Jacob. The interviewers they're like, yeah, well, the villains are looking like, it looks like they're looking at somebody else. They're like, do you want to? And Tom, like, all the Avengers cast is always said like him and Mark Ruffalo are like the two worst people in the cast
to interview. They just spoil everything.
They always spill the beans. I think that's why we haven't seen Tom really pop up to promote Brand New Day, because they're worried he's gonna spoil something. But yeah, it's just funny because Tom's like, "Hey, they took him out," and and they're like, "They took who out?" And he's like, "No." Or he has to like change, and like you see Zendaya like reach over, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" Trying to like, but I just thought that was funny leading up to No Way Home, and we all knew it was coming.
Yeah, real quick to piggyback on that, I just saw a quote from Sadie Sink, who's announced to be in Brand New Day. We don't know necessarily what character she's going to be. I'm sure we can all guess that we might be Gwen Stacy, but she's like, it's not really hard. You just don't say it. Because they're like asking her, "How do you like being a part of this?
Yeah.
Is it hard to kind of keep the secrets?" He's like, "No, you just don't say it. Like that's not." And of course, her history on Stranger Things, where it's also a
Mhm.
lot about like, don't spoil it. She's used to that, but I just thought that was a funny comment from her. So
Well, I know what else I was gonna say too. It's crazy to think that for Infinity War, most of the actors, like Tom Holland, even said they weren't told what was happening in the scene when they like start disappearing. So like the fact that it is believable that he's like they just gave him the lines or whatever, and he didn't have any clue that he was gonna like disappear in that moment is crazy to think about because it's like such a I remember in the theater seeing Infinity War at the end, and I was just like, especially like Rocket and Groot, like Bucky and stuff. Like that was crazy. To just that whole sequence was nuts. Um, but yeah, the Tom Holland, you know, iterations for mostly the MCU Spider-Man that we've been getting is really cool. It's definitely the most, like Chris said earlier, everybody online you know, calls him the Iron Boy or whatever. It's definitely the most like tech heavy suit that we've had like in all the movies. He's always got some kind of tech, but it's also really cool because there's like in Homecoming when he's trapped in that like bunker place and he's trying to get out. He's like tinkering around with a bunch of the stuff in the suit, and there's like a bunch of references to like the past comic stuff and all that. So there's a lot of fun stuff that they threw in there. I really Homecoming is not only just a great Marvel film and like it's our first real introduction besides Civil War to like Tom Holland and stuff. But I've been a diehard Michael Keaton fan for so long, so just the fact that he was the villain, he's fantastic. Um, and then it's kind of funny. Michael Keaton has played 3 characters that all dealt with being winged creatures.
mm-hmm.
He was Batman, obviously Vulture, and then Birdman. He was nominated for an Oscar for portraying a made up character called Birdman. So I just think that's super funny. Um, the all the John Hughes nods in Homecoming are it's so fun. Like obviously, I'm a huge John Hughes fan. I grew up like Ferris Bueller's Day Off is one of my all time favorite movies, and they have a nod to Ferris Bueller's Day Off when he's chasing the white van, and so he's like going from yard to yard and house to house and stuff. It's kind of like a nod to Ferris Bueller, which is fun. Um, really cool tie-in to the Ramones. They play Blitzkrieg Bop in Homecoming, and their final album that they ever did. There's there's like a B track set on the back end of the last album they ever put out, and the very last song that's on that final album was a cover of the Spider-Man song that like that they kind of like did a nod to the Ramones in Homecoming. That's why they played Blitzkrieg Bop, which is cool.
Nice.
Kind of sad. Spider-Man: Far From Home was the first movie that we had without Stan Lee as a cameo, which is always sad to think about. Um, Kind of a small world. So Jake Gyllenhaal obviously was Mysterio in Far From Home. He almost had to replace Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 2 because Toby got hurt on Seabiscuit. He like messed up his back really bad, and so like they thought they were gonna have to replace him, and so Jake Gyllenhaal was almost cast to replace him as Spider-Man, which is insane. And then obviously Toby worked it out, and it all worked out in the end. But they both played brothers in the movie Brothers with Natalie Portman. So Jake Gyllenhaal and Toby were brothers in that movie, which is funny. Um, No Way Home became Sony's highest grossing film ever. And I think it also was obviously a huge deal because that came out December of 2021, like right
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the pandemic, basically. And theaters were, hadn't done really well in a long time. A lot of theaters weren't even going to survive, it sounded like. And so we got No Way Home. And then in May, like 5 months later, we got Top Gun Maverick. So Spider-Man: No Way Home and Top Gun: Maverick, like, pretty much helped keep the theaters alive for a couple years so we could, you know, keep going, and now they're starting to think of new ways to get people in, and we're getting, like, good cinema that especially, like, this year, we're just a lot of movies are just doing really well, so we have No Way Home to that kinda kick-started during the pandemic to get people back in the theaters, so, very fun. I mean, the franchise up to this point, the Tom Holland version has been great. Far From Home, I agree with Chris. I mean, I thought I've always been a huge fan of Mysterio, and so and, like, Jake Gyllenhaal was really great, but, like, I also think they kind of didn't do the character justice or, like, they didn't do it quite how we probably would have assumed they would have done it, so I would have liked to seen something different with that, but, overall, it's really great. No Way Home had so many moments that were just I mean, yes, people can say nostalgia bait all they want, but, like, it wasn't just like they threw those in, like, the story all gelled together the way it needed to, and it also helped with the storytelling in the MCU as well, so, like, I thought they did a fantastic job. I mean, there's so many moments that make you cheer, and especially that first time watching it in the opening night with a packed crowd, like, I just remember laughing and crying and getting choked up and like, feeling warm, like, "Oh my god, this is so." I mean, yes, it's a lot of nostalgia stuff, but, like, it makes you feel so good, especially as a true Spider-Man fan, so, I'm excited to see what they do with Brand New Day. I think you hit it on the head, Sprang, like, it is like a new it's almost like a new version of the Tom Holland Spider-Man that we're gonna see now, and, I think it's more mature also, they're bringing John Bernthal's Punisher into this, which, he's a way more mature character in the comics and, even, like, the TV shows and stuff, and, even having, like, Hulk be in it and stuff, I think it'll be little bit more aggressive than the other ones, so I think it'll be cool, but, I'm excited to see, what maybe they'll have some other cool nostalgia,
Mhm.
you know, cameos that show up and stuff, but we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, one thing I wanted to ask, Chris, I mean, you've read more of the comics than I have, I'm sure. The plot for Brand New Day, at least what we've seen in the trailers and what they're kind of promoting it as, is that he's going through a change from being, it seems, being kind of the Spider-Man we've known, and he's going to develop these other powers and these other abilities. I mean, that one moment where the ninjas are coming at him and he does the whole spider thing like that and he breaks it apart. I mean, in the trailer, it just looks super cool. Can you share a little bit of what this might be? Is this something that they've done in the comics, or is this new for what they're doing?
They've done this in the comics, so I think there's two different routes this could go. So this could go the route of where they do a storyline where he encounters the villain Morlun, which is an interdimensional, like, vampire, I believe, or being that just goes from multiverse to multiverse, just hunting and killing Spider-Man. Or they could do Man Spider. But even in Man Spider in the comics, what they do is he's fighting this villainess named the Queen, and she basically kisses him, and he basically turns into Man Spider. But then that Peter, like, dies. But, like, there's like the actual Peter is, like, in a web cocoon under a bridge, and he's reborn essentially. And that's how he has, like, that organic weapon. So, like, when you see in the trailer, like, you see how he kind of, like, falls out of, like, the little cocoon that he's in, and, like, he shoots his arm up and is like, "What the?" So
Mhm.
I think they're going one of two ways with that. I'm not, like I said, Tom has not been in any of the interviews, so
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the trailers and I'm trying to, like, piece together. But, like, there's so many comic book references. The scene where, he's swinging, he's got the guy in his arm. That's like a cover art where he's fighting the hand. Captain Boomerang is in it as well, where he's flipping through the scene on the skyscraper. And I looked it up earlier today, like, the runtime. I was one of my biggest things, not even with just, like, Spider-Man, just, like, in movies in general, is, like, a lot of movies have been, like, pretty short. Like, this is supposed to have, like, a 2.5-hour runtime. So I was like, that was one of my biggest things. Is I was like, there's a lot in this movie, and I hope it's not like an hour 40-minute movie because that means everything's gonna be jam packed. Like it's not gonna fit well, and it's just gonna be a clutter. But I was like, when I saw this is gonna be a long movie, I was like, they really have the opportunity to make this a well developed story and then continue on down the line with whichever timeline they're going with here.
Yeah. And I really do hope that this is not Tom Holland's last Spider-Man. I mean,
No, I
I
hope not
I
either.
I feel like this is the beginning of a new trilogy, a new opportunity to kind of do it, like we said, a different take on the character, a more mature take, and like really take this into a different way than the prior ones. He's on his own. He can just do the New York thing. One thing I was thinking as we were talking through this is we haven't really seen Spider-Man swinging through the city like
Yes.
that was such
Yes.
a key part of the other two iterations was like seeing him swing through New York is like the key, especially the Raimi ones. Just seeing Toby swing through the city was like that's the coolest thing. And I feel like in this one, it feels like they've also been borrowing a little bit from some of the visual takes of the Into the Spider-Verse films, just with the way that he's jumping, falling off the building. It looks a little bit like how Miles Morales fell off the building at the end of the first movie. And so it's just, they're really kind of, I think they're swinging for the fences with this one to give us something we haven't seen from Tom Holland yet. And so that's kind of where I'm at
My
Well, and
the
a
excitement.
new director too, because John Watts did the other three. So now we're kind of all of it is we're starting fresh almost. So
Yeah.
yeah,
The other thing I wanted to comment on, just from a behind the scenes thing, is Tom Holland. I mentioned a little bit that he's somewhat producing this as well. Is he told Sony, "You got to hold off because I'm doing the Odyssey with Chris Nolan, so we're going to delay production."
very anticipated film of the year, by the way. Very
Yes,
yeah,
anticipated film.
my high. I've already got 4 tickets to see it in 35 millimeter and then 3 and 70 millimeter IMAX, and I'm just super stoked. So it's gonna be
You'll
crazy.
have to let me know how that goes. I haven't gotten my tickets yet, so
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. There's a 70 millimeter here in Dallas IMAX screen. It's sold out every day except for the first 3 rows of the IMAX, which is like I've seen Watchmen in that, and it's not fun. It's you still get the movie, but it's like you're
yeah,
leaning
you're
back. You're
cramped.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and on that big, 7-story building or 7-story screen, it's like you're like doing this just to see
yeah.
the characters. And so I had to try to find tickets. They even have a 2:15 showing in the morning and a 7:45 showing. So, I mean, they are like
15 in the morning.
seriously, and
Good
it's sold
lord,
out. Like, okay, maybe
ew.
the 2:15 isn't. 2:15
that's
and 7:45
insane.
on the weekdays are not sold out, but on the weekends, sold out except for the first 3 rows. I was lucky to find tickets to where we can go up on the far right side. Every showing, I'm on the far right side, trying to, we'll be able to see it. It's not in the very front, but it's in the front couple rows on the side. But yeah, 3 showings in that 70 millimeter IMAX. And one I'm seeing it opening like the Thursday night premiere at down in downtown Dallas at the Alamo Drafthouse Cedars, and that's 35 millimeter film. So all of my showings right now are film, and I have not even looked at tickets for like a Tuesday night. Just seeing it at my local theater with the Firewheel. I'm sorry, with the AMC, A list. I'm gonna see it a couple more times, I'm sure, just at the regular digital IMAX or whatever. So it's gonna be crazy though.
It's
It's
gonna
gonna be
be
crazy.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I have to say speaking of Spider-Man, and he was in Endgame, I stopped counting at 13 showings in the theater. So we'll see what I get to with the Odyssey. I'm
dang.
sure it won't be that many. I was single, and I was in a relationship with Kristen, but I wasn't like we weren't married or anything yet. And so I just like any chance I got, I'm like just up at the theater. Let's go see this again. Let's do this again. Had a little bit more free time then, but and I wasn't doing the podcast, so but this has been fun. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show again. I hope you enjoyed having the conversations.
I'll always talk Spider-Man with anyone, bro. You know that.
Heck yeah, man.
I appreciate you guys for having me. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, next year they're supposed to be releasing the third in the Spider-Verse films, and so if that gets announced,
Yes.
we'll bring
You
you
can
back
let me
on.
know.
That's why I
Yeah.
purposely left those off. I wanted to just do the live action because I was like, there's another opportunity here to talk Spider-Man, and I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to spend it all in this episode. So
Yeah.
we'll be reaching out again, especially for that one. And of course, any Star Wars content, I'm happy to reach out to you as well. You always brought a lot of energy to those episodes too. So excited to have you back again some other time. Josh, thanks so much for joining again.
Absolutely.
And everybody else, we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to jump over to our website, moviesthatmakeyoupodcast.com, see all of our links. Follow us on Instagram so you never miss an episode, a live stream, or an interview. And until next time, keep watching movies.